Hi everyone, myself Dr. P. Soumya, working as an assistant professor in the Department of Chemistry, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering College. In this session, I'm going to discuss about environment legislations, hazardous waste management and handling rules 2008. In this session, I'm going to cover the topics introduction to hazardous waste and hazardous waste management in India, hazardous waste management and handling rules 2008. So here introduction about hazardous waste. The hazardous waste being to it is a belong to a category of special waste. So it is belong to a special category of waste. So this is containing certain chemicals, metals, pathogenic organisms, so which can cause damage to the environment even at low concentration. So here hazardous waste, it is a waste. So it is belong to the category of a special waste. So it is containing certain chemicals and metals and also pathogenic organisms which can cause damage to the environment even at low concentrations. So that is called as hazardous waste. So it will affect the environment even at low concentration levels. So chemicals, some of chemicals and metals and pathogenic organisms. So these will affect the environment even at low concentration. So these are come under hazardous waste. So if not properly managed for safe disposal, so it can have frightening environmental repercussions. So here, if we are not managed, we are not disposed in a safe manner, so it can have frightening, it can have adverse effects on environment because of the hazardous waste disposal. So here indiscriminate disposal of these wastes into the environment without proper treatment. This could lead to pollution of river water, land as well as groundwater resources. So here the unusual indiscriminate disposal of these hazardous waste into environment without proper treatment. So this could lead to pollution of river water, land as well as groundwater resources. So precautionary measures are required for handling of hazardous waste generated within the country from different sources as well as through import other countries for recovery of useful materials. So precautionary measure, it is required for handling hazardous waste generated from the various industries. So here recognizing the need for proper management and handling of hazardous waste, the regulations in this regard under the Environment Act 1986. So this have been notified by the Ministry of Environment and Forest, Government of India. So here the recognizing the need for proper management and handling of hazardous waste, the regulations. So in this regard, under the Environment Act 1986, it have been notified by Ministry of Environment and Forest, that is Government of India, in 1989. So at the international level, the concern for restricting transboundary movement of hazardous waste, it is reflected in Basel Convention 1989. So the subsequent follow-up activities are there. So here, at the international level, the concern for restricting transboundary movement of hazardous waste. So the movement of hazardous waste, it is reflected in the convention, that is Basel Convention in 1989. So here, in recent years, some important steps have been initiated for hazardous waste management. So here, hazardous waste management in India. So in recent years, some important steps have been initiated for hazardous management. So these are related to harmonization of domestic legislation with decision of Basel Convention. So program for setting up of hazardous waste treatment and disposal facilities in industrial estates, setting up of national center for cleaner technology or production with its subcenters in different states, in coordination with customs and port authorities to ensure strict control over the movements of hazardous waste across the international borders and the prevention of illegal trafficking. So, strengthening the capability of central and state pollution control boards for regulation and management and handling of hazardous waste. So, setting up a sub-regional training center at New Delhi. So, what Basel Convention? So, here in Basel Convention, it is the broadest and most significant international treaty on transboundary movement of hazardous waste management waste, so which are presently in effect. So, this is the broadest Basel Convention. It is the broadest and most significant international treaty on transboundary movement of hazardous waste. So the impact of hazardous waste on the environment has large repercussions, particularly on the quality of waters and land. Effective regulations of the management disposal of hazardous waste, it will require cooperation at the global level. So here the impact of hazardous waste on the environment, it has large adverse effects on the environment. So particularly on the quality of water. So it is affecting the quality of water and also quality of land. It is affecting the land resources. So the regulation of management and disposal of hazardous waste, it requires cooperation at the global level. So the Basel Convention, it is the first and foremost global legal instrument regulating the transboundary movement of hazardous waste in and their disposal. So in this, we have discussed here about regulating the transboundary movement of hazardous waste and their disposal. So the Basel Convention, so this is adopted by the diplomatic conference in Basel in 1989. This was developed under the auspices of United Nations Environment Program, that is UNEP. So and it is entered into force in May 1997. So the Basel Convention, it has 111 states and 111 states and the European Community parties. So the rapidly increasing number of parties reflects the growing awareness and interest of states in this import sector of environmental health protection. So in Basel Convention, so it has 111 states and European Community parties. So the rapidly increasing number of parties, so this will reflect the growing awareness and interest of states in this import sector of health and protection, environment and health protection. So the following are key objectives of Basel Convention. So this will the main objective is this is to reduce main objective is to reduce transboundary movement of hazardous waste and other waste subject to the Basel Convention to the minimum consistent with the environmentally sound management. So second one is to dispose of the hazardous waste and other waste generated as close as possible to their source of generation. So dispose of the hazardous waste and other waste generated as close as possible to their source of generation. So to minimize the generation of hazardous waste in terms of quality and hazard potential. So to minimize the generation of hazardous waste in terms of quality and also hazard potential. So to ensure strict control over movement of hazardous waste across borders and prevention of illegal traffic. So to prohibit shipments of hazardous waste to countries lacking legal administrative and technical capacity to manage and dispose of them in an environmentally sound manner, and to assist developing countries and countries with economics in transition in environmentally sound management of the hazardous waste, so they generate. So here many objectives are in Basel Convention. So here first is to reduce the transboundary movement of hazardous waste and other waste. So these are subjected to the Basel Convention to minimum consistent with their environmentally sound management. Second is to dispose of the hazardous waste and other waste generated as close as possible to their source of generation, to minimize the generation of hazardous waste in terms of quality and hazard potential, and to ensure the strict control over movement of hazardous waste across borders and prevention of illegal traffic, and also to prohibit shipments of hazardous waste to countries lacking a legal, administrative, and also technical capacity to manage and dispose of them in an environmentally sound manner. So last one is to assist developing countries and countries with economics in transition. So in environmentally sound management of hazardous waste they generate. So basic approach in hazardous waste management, the government of India it has promulgated the hazardous waste rules in 1989 through the Ministry of Environment and Forest. So MOEF under the Aegis of Environment Act 1986. So under the hazardous waste rules, management and handling rules, the hazardous waste are divided into 18 categories. So, moreover, the role and responsibilities of the waste generated, state or central pollution control boards, and state government, it is clearly defined. However, the selection of suitable site for an effective functioning of TSDF, and it is the key aspect, and it is depends upon several factors such as waste characteristics, site characteristics, public acceptance, and prevailing laws and regulations. So the facility siting should also incorporate the protection of human health, environment, and property values in a community. So, though the selection of an ideal site it is conforming with the above factors, it is difficult task. Few guidelines are available in India for selection of best site for same purpose. So, in India, unauthorized dumping of hazardous waste it is, however, continuing, and in most of the places, the hazardous waste it is being utilized to fill the low lying areas, which is not acceptable. So here hazardous waste, categories of hazardous waste. So here cyanide waste. So this is 1 kg of kg per year as cyanide. So it is produced. So it is regulatory quantities. The regulatory quantities of cyanide waste is 1 kg per year as cyanide. So metal finishing waste 10 kg per year, the sum of the specified substance calculated as pure metal. So, waste containing water soluble chemical compounds of lead, copper, zinc, chromium, nickel, selenium, barium, and antimony. So, these are 10 kg per year. And mercury, arsenic, thallium, cadmium, bearing waste. So, here 5 kg per year, sum of the specified substance calculated as pure metal, and non-halogenated hydrocarbons, including solvents, to 200 kg per year, and halogenated hydrocarbons, including solvents, 50 kg per year, calculated as halogenated hydrocarbons. So here seventh one is waste from paints, pigments, glue, varnish, and printing ink. So this is as per regulatory quantities are 250 kg per year, calculated as oil or oil emulsions. So waste from dyes and dye intermediates containing inorganic chemical compounds. So these are 200 kg per year. Waste from dyes and dye intermediates containing organic chemical compounds. So these are 50 kg per year. Waste oil and oil emulsions, these are 1000 kg per year. So tarry waste and also from the refining and tar residues from the distillation or pyrolytic treatment. So this is 200 kg per year. So of specification and discarded product irrespective of any quantity, discarded containers and container liners of hazardous and toxic waste. So these also the regulatory quantities are irrespective of any quantity. So these are the types of waste and regulatory quantities of waste type. Hazardous waste management in India. So here for this hazardous waste management in India, the essential elements of hazardous waste management. So these are identification of hazardous waste generation. First step is identification of hazardous waste generation. Second one is data collection and waste characterization, quantification of hazardous waste, identification of sites for disposal, and conducting EIA, implementing TSDF program. So here these are the essential elements in the house hazardous waste management: identification of hazardous waste generation, data collection, waste characterization, quantification of hazardous waste, identification of sites for disposal, conducting EIA, implementing TSDF program. First step is identification of hazardous waste generation. For identifying the hazardous waste generating industries, it is the first step, and the hazardous waste, these are classified in under 18 categories. So we have already discussed about the waste type categories. So these are hazardous waste, these are classified under 18 categories, and this information may be used to screen the waste generated and classifying them as hazardous waste. So here this information may be used to screen the waste generated and classifying them as hazardous waste. So however, there are few observations, so that there is a probability of occurrence of waste in more than one category, and so this set classification system does not give any information to understand the toxic characteristics of hazardous waste. So here category and classification, this does not give any information to understand the toxic characteristics of hazardous waste. So the data available with the State Industrial Corporation (IDC), District Industry Center, State Pollution Control Boards. So these may be utilized to identify the industries with potential for hazardous waste generation. So the data available with the State Industrial Corporation, District Industrial Center, and State Pollution Control Boards. So these may be utilized to identify the industries with a potential for hazardous waste generation. So second one is data collection. After identifying the hazardous waste generating sources, the inventory of data pertaining to hazardous waste generation, this can be developed by conducting surveys through specially prepared questionnaires to each of the identified sources. So after identifying the hazardous waste generating sources, the inventory of data, so this is pertaining to hazardous waste generation, this can be developed by conducting surveys. So this includes the questionnaires. So this is questionnaires are prepared so to each of the identified industries, identified sources. So this should be followed by field visits for data verification. So this should be followed by field visits for data verification. So it is essential that the data is obtained from the above options. It is verified from secondary data. So means it is either published data or available for another industry producing similar products. So it is essential that the data is obtained from the above options. It is verified from the secondary data. So hazardous waste generation, so it rates estimated from plant capacity in Indian industries. So these are available in literature. Hazardous waste generation rates, these are estimated from plant capacity in Indian industries. So these are available in literature. So these will help in identifying any misappropriate data and correcting in the database. So we have in industry literature. So for this hazardous waste generation rates, this is estimated from the plant capacity in industries, Indian industries, or these are available in literature. So these will help in identifying any misappropriate data and correcting in database. Waste characterization. Next step is waste characterization. So after identifying the hazardous waste, we have to characterize the hazardous waste using different techniques. The hazardous waste that is generated from the study region should be characterized. The hazardous waste that is generated from the study region, so that is industry region, they should be characterized. For this purpose, it is advisable that the samples may be collected from the waste generation source and analyzed in the laboratory. In this, the sample connected from the waste generation sources and these are analyzed in the laboratory. So literature data, this may be used the absence of primary data. So if literature primary data is not there, so we have to use secondary data, that is literature data. So this literature data, this may be used in the absence of primary data. So detailed information of hazardous waste characterization pertaining to physical, chemical and general characteristics and also properties pertaining to ignitability, corrosivity, reactivity, toxicity. So this is to be required. So in this we have to find out the different characteristics like physical or chemical or general characteristics and properties of hazard waste. So this including ignitability, corrosivity, reactivity, and toxicity. So these characteristics are characterized in waste characterization in the laboratory. Next one is quantification of hazardous waste. So here, how much quantity is there? That hazardous waste. It is quantification of hazardous taking place means we have to find out the quantity of hazardous waste present in. So then hazardous waste. So here, hazardous material in hazardous waste. So the hazardous waste are quantified based on their individual characteristics. The several options of compatibility of waste with different characteristics should be studied and segregated. So the quantity of hazardous waste, so uh, this will be expressed in terms of each category for disposal. So recyclable, incinerable, and disposable. So here the quantity of hazardous waste, so this will be expressed in terms of each category of disposal. So the waste that are recyclable are uses waste oil or lead waste, so zinc waste. So here the waste that are recyclable are there useful. So these are example waste oil, lead waste and zinc waste. So these waste are, so here the quantity of hazardous waste will be expressed in terms of category for disposal. So for disposal, after identification of quantity, so we have to identify the sites for disposal. So here, after quantifying the hazardous waste and assessing the probable area and requirements for its treatment. So after identifying the hazardous waste, after quantifying the hazardous waste, we have to dispose the hazardous waste in a site. So for that, we have to identify sites for disposal. So after quantifying the hazardous waste and assessing the probable area requirements for its treatment, so storage and disposal and also sites, these are to be identified. So in this, so for storage, so the identification of sites for disposal, so this may include, so this is a probable area requirements for its treatment, storage, disposal, and the sites are to be identified. So for this purpose, topo sheets and or remote sensing images of the study region. So these may be used. So the sites aid to be physically verified in the field and to draw observations pertaining to the four different types of attributes: receptor related, pathway related, waste characteristics related, and waste management practices related. So these are available for ranking the sites. So these sites to be physically verified in the field, and these are draw observations pertaining to four different types of attributes. So these may include receptor related, pathway related, waste characteristics related, and waste management practices related. So these are available for ranking of the sites. These were used for the ranking of sites. So for this, we have to identify the sites for disposal of hazardous waste. Next, in that identification of sites for disposal, the site with a minimum score out of the available sites for ranking. So the site with a minimum score out of the available site for the ranking. So should be chosen as the site of establishing TSDF. So here, physical models are available in literature, so that give accurate results than the approximate methods in guidelines of for ranking the sites for TSDF. So the next step is conducting EIA. So the environment impact assessment, conducting environment impact assessment, that is EIA. This should be conducted in the site identified in the above step. So we have identified the one site. So in this, the environment impact assessment, this should be conducted in the site as identified for disposal. So the impacts from the project should be identified, and public acceptance should be obtained for clearing the site for TSDF. So of the available options for impact prediction, matrix method gives a better approximation of results, and it focuses on cause condition effect relationship of the attributes involved in the activity. So here, of the available options for impact prediction, matrix method gives a better approximation of results, as it focuses on the cause condition effect relationship of the attributes involved in the activity. So here, implementing of TSDF program, the TSDF program, it should be implemented at the final designated site. Designated site, the site should contain adequate provisions for storage, treatment, and final disposal. So here the site should contain adequate provisions of storage as well as treatment, also final disposal. So layouts for collecting hazardous waste from the waste generation sources should be planned. So the site should have the laboratory facilities to monitor the function of TSDF from the time to time. So the landfill is the final disposal option in TSDF. So here the leachate that has percolated should be treated in effluent treatment plant. So before disposal, so here the leachate that has percolated should be treated in effluent treatment plant before disposal. So monitoring of ambient environmental qualities and TSDF performance, so should be done regularly during the post closure period of landfill. So here that is for 30 years. So, hazardous material management, handling, and transboundary movement rules 2008. So, here the rules, these came into force in 2008 under the Environment Protection Act 1986. So, these hazardous material rules, material hazardous waste management rules, so these came into force in 2008 under the Environmental Protection Act 1986. So earlier in 1989, hazardous waste, these rules were made under the act, but these rules were superseded by the rules passed in 2008. According to these rules, hazardous waste means any waste which by reason of any of its physical, chemical, reactive, toxic, flammable, explosive or corrosive characteristics. So these may cause danger, or it is likely to cause danger to health or environment. So whether alone or when in contact with other waste or substances. These are hazardous waste. So, according to the hazardous waste rules, hazardous waste means any waste which, by reason of any its physical, chemical, reactive, or toxic, flammable, explosive, corrosive characteristics causes danger, so are likely to cause danger to the environment or health. So, whether alone or when it contact with other waste or substances, this is hazardous waste. So here handling of hazardous waste, it shall be responsibility of occupier. So occupier means a person controlling the factory or unit producing hazardous waste. So it shall be the responsibility of occupier to handle such hazardous waste in safe and environmentally sound manner and sell or send it to a recycler or reprocessor or reuser as per rules and treat, store or dispose of such waste as per the rules. So handling of rules. So here hazardous waste. So it shall be responsibility of an occupier. So they have to handle such waste in a and safe and environmentally sound manner. So here for storage. Handling of hazardous waste storage is the hazardous waste. This can be stored by recyclers or operators for a period not exceeding 90 days, and proper records are to be maintained. So the hazardous waste, this can be stored by recyclers or operators for a period not exceeding to 90 days, and they have to maintain the proper records. Import and export so of hazardous waste. So here transboundary movement. So this is called as transboundary movement. So import and export of hazardous waste. So the Ministry of Environment and Forest, the Ministry of Environment and Forest, the shall be no shall be the nodal ministry to deal with the transboundary movement of hazardous waste. So no import of hazardous waste from any country to India shall be permitted for disposal. No import of hazardous waste from any country. So these to India shall be permitted for a disposal. So here import from any country shall be permitted only for recycling, recovery or reuse. So import from no import of hazardous waste from any country. So in India, these shall be permitted for disposal. So import from any country, this shall be permitted only for recycling, recovery and reuse. So export from India, they may be allowed to an actual user of waste and with the prior consent of importing country. Procedures for export and import hazardous waste. So these are outlined in the rules. Certain hazardous waste, these are listed in Schedule 4 of the rules, which are not to be permitted for import and export. Some are exported, some are imported. So certain hazardous waste are listed in Schedule 4 of the rules. So which are not permitted, which are not to be permitted for import and export. So next, treatment and storage disposal facility. Sites are for such facility. So these are identified by the state government or occupier or operator. The design of such facility, it is strictly as per guidelines issued by the Central Pollution Control Board and monitored by CPCB. Packing and labeling transport. Hazardous waste shall be packed and labeled based on the composition in a manner suitable for safe handling, storage, and transport as per the guidelines issued by CPCB. So labeling and packaging shall be visible and stable. Labeling and packaging of hazardous waste, these shall be visible and stable. So here hazardous waste management and handling rules 2008 in that to schedule 1. So half the rules these includes a list of various process generating hazardous waste. Some of the important process are petrochemical process, oil and gas drilling, petroleum refining, primary and secondary production of zinc, copper, lead, production of cadmium, aluminium, arsenic, phenols, asbestos, mineral acids, iron and steel, metal surface treatment, production of caustic soda, solvents, paints, plastics, glue, cements, canvas, textiles, wood preservatives, pharmaceuticals, pesticides, and paper and pulp industry. So these are common effluent treatment plants and incinerators. So some of the important process are petrochemical process. So here the rules includes list of various process generating hazardous waste. So here some of the important process of petrochemical process, oil and gas drilling, petroleum refining. So here all metal. So these are the so listed. So here we have listed some of the chemicals: zinc, copper, lead, production of cadmium industries, aluminum, arsenic, phenol, asbestos, mineral acids, etc. So these are producing hazardous waste. So these are producing hazardous waste. Schedule 2. So here provides list of hazardous chemicals along with their concentration. So this is provides list of hazardous chemicals along with the concentration limits as follows. So here the limits. So here we have different hazardous waste, different metals and different hazardous waste which are producing from the various industries. So here schedule 1 provides the information about the hazardous chemicals, and schedule 2 it will provides the list of hazardous chemicals along with their concentration limits. So if we have this concentration limits, so we have no effect on environment and health. So if the concentration limits exceeds, so the this hazardous waste, so it will affect the environment as well as health. So here concentration limits of the chromium, mercury, naphthalene, benzene. So these concentration limits are 50 milligram per kg. So if we have more than 50 milligrams per kg, so it will affect the environment as well as health of human and all human beings and all living things. So lead, copper, organophosphorus compounds concentration limit it is 5000 milligram per kg. Ammonia compound, chlorides, acid, anhydrides. So the this concentration limit of ammonia compound, chlorides, acid, anhydrides. So this is 20,000 milligram per kg. Inorganic acids, hydrocarbons, and hydrates, nitrates. So they should have concentration limit of inorganic acids, hydrocarbons, hydrates, nitrates is uh, 50,000 milligram per kg. So here, so these are the hazardous waste management handling rules 2018. So here schedule 1 it will provides list of hazardous chemicals. Schedule 2 it will provides list of hazardous chemicals along with their concentration limits. So here so the different chemicals are having different concentration limits. So if we exceed the concentration limits, it will have adverse effects on environment as well as human health of the and all living things. So schedule 3 it is these based on these base convention on transport Basel convention. Based on these Basel convention on transboundary movement of hazardous waste, a list of hazardous waste it is included in this is a part A and part B. This was divided hazardous waste. This is divided into two types: part A, part B, which can be imported with prior informed consent, and part B it can be imported without prior informed consent. Part B, part A. So these are divided into two types. Part A means which can be imported with prior informed consent. So here it can be imported without prior informed consent. So this is Schedule 3. It is explaining about the convention. So the Basel Convention on Transboundary Movement of Hazardous Waste. So here this is uh, giving a list of hazardous waste. It is giving list of hazardous waste. Schedule 4, it includes list of hazardous waste requiring registration for cycling reprocessing. So here this will give the schedule 4. It is includes the list of hazardous waste requiring registration for recycling and reprocessing. So it will includes the it will give the it will includes the list of hazardous waste requires registration for recycling and reprocessing. Schedule 5, it includes maximum permissible limits of various parameters of used soils suitable for used soil for reprocessing and that of fuel derived from waste oil. Schedule 5 includes maximum permissible limits of various parameters of used soil suitable for reprocessing and the fuel derived from the waste oil. So here schedule 6, it provides a list of hazardous waste. It list of hazardous waste provide for import or export. Schedule 6, it will provide list of hazardous waste which are provided for import and or export. So here these are the hazardous waste management and handling rules 2008. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.